Hello and welcome to Newsround, the programme that brings you the news from across the Middle East, Africa and South Asia aerospace and defence market. I'm Jill Stockbridge.
And I'm Alan Peaford. And a special welcome to those followers of the Dubai Air Show and the Tarsus team joining us for the first time today. The news broke last week that Times Aerospace and Tarsus have signed a strategic partnership to bring us together for far more in the future.
And of course, things are hotting up for the Dubai Air Show. We'll be talking about the latest figures from Boeing and their market outlook and how things have changed for airlines in Africa and the Middle East. We'll also hear from Beirut about how the Lebanese Army helicopters are helping to make ends meet.
And Jon Lake brings us news about the Kuwaiti Eurofighter as well as Turkey's F-16 programme.
But first, this message from our sponsor. Welcome back, and here are the news headlines from across our MEASA region. The Democratic Republic of Congo has launched Air Congo as a joint venture company with Ethiopian Airlines. DRC will own 51% of the new airline, with Ethiopian Airlines holding 49%. DRC Transport Minister Cherubin Okende said the Congolese people are waiting for concrete actions, so everything is being done to ensure that the project is carried out as soon as possible. For many years, the DRC has been considered a serious opportunity for successful air transport, but had been plagued by safety issues. The involvement of Ethiopia's experienced team suggests this could be the time to see the sector boom in the country. Bell Textron has completed the first AH-1Z Viper attack helicopter for the Kingdom of Bahrain. It delivered the first 12 production aircraft to Naval Air Systems Command as part of the 2019 Foreign Military Sales contract. The helicopter is being prepared and the US Defence Contract Management Agency will ship for handover to Bahrain in early 2022. Zila Aviation has entered a strategic agreement with Kenyan low-cost airline Jambojet. The subsidiary of Kenya Airways operates a fleet of de Havilland Canada -8 Q400 aircraft. And as a result of the deal, Zila will act as an appointed agent for leasing Jambojet's aircraft under aircraft, crew, maintenance and insurance conditions. Tanzania's Civil Aviation Authority and Thales have successfully completed the delivery of the air traffic management system and radars, enhancing Tanzania's air traffic safety and efficiency. The modernisation programme involved the installation of ATC surveillance radars and Top Sky ATC at 6 different locations in Tanzania, including Songwe, Dar es Salaam, Kilimanjaro, Mwanza, Zanzibar and Arusha airports. SpiceJet last week unveiled a special livery on its Boeing 737 aircraft to celebrate India reaching the milestone of administering 1 billion COVID-19 vaccine doses. Unveiled at Delhi Airport, the livery displays an image of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and healthcare workers on 3 of its Boeing 737 aircraft. SpiceJet also announced this week the launch of 28 new domestic flights commencing October 31st. And finally, positive news the industry is picking up, as Emirates has announced plans to boost its operational workforce by looking to recruit more than 6,000 staff over the next 6 months. As restrictions ease worldwide with the wider administration of the vaccine, additional pilots, cabin crew, engineering specialists and ground staff will be needed to support the airline's ramp-up of operations across its global network. In response to the sooner-than-expected surge in customer demand, Emirates has already restored 90% of its network and is on track to reaching 70% of its pre-pandemic capacity by the end of 2021. That sounds like good news, Alan.
Yes, it does, Jill. But there are still a lot of pilots and crew in Dubai waiting in hope and expectation of a callback, with a lot of challenges of getting back into the sims for training and getting current again. And yet at the same time, there are plenty of concerns about whether there are pilots and engineers to meet the demand. And we could be seeing a real rise in that demand for crew if the latest figures from Boeing are to be believed. In its annual market outlook announced last week, the manufacturer forecasts that African airlines, for example, will require 1,030 new aircraft by 2040, valued at $160 billion. And aftermarket services such as MRO will be worth $235 billion, enabling growth for air travel and economies across the continent. Well, Africa's commercial aircraft fleet projected to grow at 1,560 over the next 20 years, according to Boeing. But in the Middle East, Boeing has said that airlines will require 3,000 new aircraft valued at $700 billion, with aftermarket services worth another $740 billion, with the region positioned to capitalise on the recovery of regional and international travel and cargo demand. But new aircraft need people, at least for now, to fly the aircraft. And globally, the industry needs more than 2.1 million new recruits to make this work. Boeing says the Middle East region alone will need 223,000 new aviation personnel by 2040, including 54,000 pilots, 51,000 technicians and 91,000 cabin crew members, while Africa's growth is still seen as slightly more stilted, with the need for 19,000 pilots, 20,000 technicians and 24,000 cabin crew. The industry in Africa really has been hit the hardest in the world in the pandemic, with few domestic operations being able to help nations weather the storm, and with parts of the continent being dependent on a non-existent inbound international tourism. Well, according to Boeing, the bright star for us comes from South Asia, with a forecast traffic growth of 6.1% over the next 20 years, 90% of this coming from India. Well, sorry, that's a lot of numbers, but they are all pointing upwards. And I think the debate we'll be having at the Dubai Air Show next month is just how are we going to match the numbers required with the people we can possibly attract. One part of our region that's already having problems is Lebanon. Now, we know that the Lebanese armed forces have been struggling, so much so that some of its allies have actually been helping to fund the military side of things. Well, we're going to hear now from Owen Holdaway, who is in Beirut, our correspondent there, who has just taken a trip on an army helicopter, which is going some way to help them make ends meet.
The Lebanese Army, like all sectors of Lebanese society, are facing extremely economic difficulties as the country goes through this economic crisis. The Lebanese lira has collapsed against the dollar, losing 90% of its value. On top of this, soldiers only take home around about $90 a month. It's this reason that they are offering these helicopter rides to tourists in order to raise cash, in order to fund their day-to-day operation and also buy parts which they have to pay for in dollars. On top of this, the country is facing economic paralysis. Ever since the port explosion behind me, nobody in power or in charge at the time has been held accountable. In many ways, the lack of accountability for the port explosion is indicative of the deep political and economic problems that face this country. Lebanon has been unable to find any accountability, and the fact that they haven't been able to find any accountability has meant that they've not been able to deal with the deep economic crisis that has faced this country. And without any political solutions, the economic difficulties facing the army and the Lebanese people is unlikely to be solved. Owen Holdaway, Beirut, Lebanon.
And another country in the region, Kuwait, is having some better news. Last week, the first pair of its Eurofighter Typhoons have taken to the air for the first time. Jon Lake reports.
Yes, Alan, that's right. The first two Eurofighter Typhoons destined for the Kuwait Air Force made their maiden flights at Leonardo's Caselle factory airfield near Turin in northwest Italy on the 15th of October. These two aircraft were both two-seaters. Remember that the Kuwaiti order for 28 Typhoons includes 6 two-seat trainer versions, and these two aircraft were painted in full Kuwaiti Air Force markings with a toned-down Kuwait Air Force crest and a full-colour Kuwaiti flag on their tail fins. These Kuwaiti Typhoons are going to be the most advanced examples of the Eurofighter Typhoon anywhere when they finally enter service next year. They'll be the first to be delivered with the new Phase 3B enhancement package software, and they'll be the first to be equipped with the new Captor E ESA radar, now known as the ECRS Mark 0 and previously known to us as Radar 1+. This ECRS Mark 0 radar provides significantly more power than competing ESA radar systems, while the innovative and advanced mechanical antenna repositioner gives a much wider field of regard, covering the entire forward hemisphere from the pilot's shoulder to the pilot's shoulder, and not a narrow 60-degree cake slice in front of the nose. And this will be a real game changer in operational service. Kuwait is undertaking a major modernisation and expansion of its fighter arm, and as well as taking these 28 Typhoons into service, the Kuwait Air Force will also receive 28 Boeing F/A-18E and F Super Hornets. That's a total of 56 new state-of-the-art fighters, replacing an existing fleet of just 39 Boeing F/A-18 Charlie and F/A-18 Delta Heritage Hornets.
And John, let's stay on fighters for a moment. I saw your report that relations between Turkey and the USA may be thawing slightly, and that Turkey's keen to get hold of some more F-16s.
That's absolutely right, Alan. Turkey has apparently in recent weeks been making overtures to the USA. These overtures aimed at securing the delivery of 40 Block 70 F-16s, the Block 70 being the latest example of the family with ESA radar and other bleeding edge technology, but also to acquire 80 F-16V modification kits. Now those will bring existing Turkish F-16s to the same standard as these new build Block 70s. Turkey, of course, once planned to buy 100 F-35As over the course of the Joint Strike Fighter programme, and it was going to use the F-35A to replace the Phantom and augment the F-35s with a fleet of indigenous MMU fighters. That's what we used to call the TFX. But in 2019, of course, Turkey was unceremoniously ejected from the F-35 programme after it had the temerity to acquire the Russian S-400 surface-to-air missile system. Now that forced a rapid change of plan for Turkey, which now intends to use its indigenous MMU as its high-end stealthy strike fighter, with the F-16s being retained to provide mass. Meanwhile, Turkey has, of course, invested a staggering $1.4 billion. That's a lot of money for Turkey in the F-35 programme. And Turkish President Recep Erdogan is furious about this. And he said that he wants Washington to either deliver the F-35s that Turkey's ordered or refund the money. In recent weeks, however, Ankara has come up with an alternative solution in an attempt to break this deadlock, suggesting that the money that they've paid for the F-35 should instead be used to enlarge the Turkish F-16 fleet and to bring it up to a more modern, more capable standard. Turkey's request for Block 70 F-16s and for these upgrade modification kits has been estimated to have a total value of $6 to $7 billion. But if successful, it would help to repair ties between these two vital NATO allies, and it could also guarantee that the Turkish defence industry, or at least a significant element of that industry, would continue to be embedded in this vital transatlantic relationship. It would also address an impending real problem for NATO, since Turkey's F-16 fleet, if not bolstered and modernised, will look increasingly outmoded and increasingly lacking in capability, and that will put the security of NATO's southern flank at real jeopardy, and it will also upset the really delicate balance of power between Turkey and Greece in the Eastern Mediterranean. Vital stuff.
Thanks, John. Of course, there will be a lot more on both those stories and plenty more in our Defence Monthly programme out this week, where Jon Lake, Angie B and Jay Menon will be bringing all the analysis behind this month's big defence stories.
And in the meantime, we're off to Doha to catch up with airline CEOs at the Arab Air Carriers Organisation for its annual General Assembly, and we'll be reporting back on that in our next news round.
So until then, stay safe, stay flying. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
How do we achieve ultimate defense interoperability? Inspired by Vision 2030, we are introducing the first of its kind, the World Defense Show. Integrating land, air, sea, satellite, and security.